So guys, welcome along to a new episode of Hellmouth Hotline. I'm your host, Rodney Stewart. We're getting into another little chat about the Hammer House of Horror, and this episode is Children of the Full Moon. And yes, I'm not going to try and push any of my social medias or my website or anything here. I'm just going to get into the episode, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please rate and review the podcast, and please consider sharing it to your social medias. I would really appreciate it. Let's get into it. This one here is called Children of the Full Moon, and hides nothing from the very opening of the episode. This is about a werewolf, this episode, and it starts off you kind of think, right, I don't think they're going to pull this off. Incredibly low budget. Back in 1979, ITV produced this here, so the budgets were not huge for this series. And at the beginning of this, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is not going to play out as good as it actually does by the end of this episode. Quick synopsis of the episode is: a married couple lost in the woods stumble across a creepy mansion and its inhabitants, an overly kind old woman, and deadly wolf children that scour the countryside looking for victims. I enjoyed this episode so much, and the old woman they talk about and that synopsis is Mrs. Ardoy, played by Diana Dors, and perfect casting, unbelievable perfect casting. She is so good in this episode, unbelievable. It's just her sense of kindness and treating people well and whatnot, and how that plays into the horror scenario that this couple ends up in by the end of the episode is absolutely fantastic. She does not break that once during this episode. There's bits and pieces where she kind of slips into something just a hair darker than her normal, but not by much, and just so severely well done. Like, you think to yourself, alright, this episode, of course they've car trouble at the start, which seems to be completely silly in the way that it happens, the way it plays out, which again is what I said at the beginning. You probably think it's not going to play out as good as it actually does, because that car trouble sequence was just kind of, that didn't really make much sense for that to happen. But when you think back on that and the bigger scale of the full episode, it makes perfect sense. The couple, they're stranded. They find this old house. They try to phone for help. It's back in the 70s. There's no such thing as mobile telephones. There's no such thing as mobile phones. So of course they have to rely on landlines. So they get to this house, and Mrs. Ardoy of course lets them use the phone. They can't get help until the next day, so she offers them to stay the night. And during the night, the wife is attacked by a werewolf, and the husband falls from the second story of the house, gets knocked out. And right there and then you're kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be, the episode's going to play out very quickly from here on in, if they're going to stay in this house. They don't. Please excuse the noise outside the studio. I live close to a road, and there are farmers up and down steady, so if that was blowing out your ears, I apologise. Yes, they don't stay at the mansion for the whole episode. They leave. This is only about halfway through. They leave, they go back to their normal lives, and she seems different from there on in. And when he wakes up in the hospital the following morning, he has a memory of what happened at the mansion and fallen, but his wife is telling him that none of that happened. We crashed the car, we ended up in hospital, you've got concussion, and she tries to play that off as if none of it ever happened. So you're kind of been thrown a curveball at this point. You know, did it happen? Did it not happen? Of course it happened. But we find out then that she is pregnant, and of course the rest of the episode leads up to the birth of this child and her returning to the mansion for that to happen. Spoilers. I'm just going to spoil this episode for you. It is worth watching, but honestly, what I'm telling you now is not going to dampen the viewing of this in any way, shape or form. That's very, very well executed. There's a lot of stuff I've left out in this, but when you get to the end of the episode, and again you start thinking back about the smallest little details that you've seen in this mansion from the moment they arrive till the end of the episode, it's just like all the pieces have been laid out, and this unwitting couple have just been pawns and a werewolf's need to spawn another generation of werewolf. It is a fantastic little episode, and definitely, like I've probably said it before about this series, like there's a lot of episodes in here that definitely on their own would justify actually buying this box set, and in all honesty, in my opinion, this episode is one of them. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you